Wnbc. Channel 4 is the East Coast and main flagship station of the NBC television network, located in New York City. Wnbc is owned by the NBC Universal-owned television stations group, and operates as part of a television duopoly with Linden, New Jersey licensed Telemundo-owned and operated station WNJU. Both are owned by Comcast subsidiary NBC Universal, which also holds a minority stake in regional sports network Sportsnet New York. WNBC's studios are co-located with NBC's corporate headquarters at 30 Rockefeller Plaza in Midtown Manhattan, and its transmitter atop the Empire State Building. WNBC also currently rents space on the 90th floor of One World Trade Center. The station is the oldest fully licensed television station in continuous operation in the United States. In the few areas of the eastern United States where an NBC station is not receivable over the air, WNBC is available on satellite via DirecTV and Dish Network, which also provides coverage of the station to Latin American and Caribbean countries. It is also carried on certain cable providers in markets where an NBC affiliate is not available on Live TV and Dish Network. DirecTV also allows subscribers in the Los Angeles market to receive WNBC for an additional monthly fee. History. Experimental operations. What is now WNBC traces its history to experimental station W2XBS, founded by the Radio Corporation of America in 1928, just 2 years after NBC was founded as the first nationwide radio network. Originally a test bed for the experimental RCA Photophone Theater television system, W2XBS used the low-definition mechanical television scanning system, and later was used mostly for reception and interference tests. The call letters W2XBS meant W2XB South, with W2XB being the call letters of the first experimental station. Started a few months earlier at General Electric's main factory in Schenectady, New York. GE was the parent company of both RCA and NBC, and technical research was done at the Schenectady plant. The station originally broadcast on the frequencies of 2.0 to 2.1 MHz. In 1929, W2XBS upgraded its transmitter and broadcast facilities to handle transmissions of 60 vertical lines at 20 frames per second, on the frequencies of 2.75 to 2.85 MHz. In 1928, Felix the Cat was one of the first images ever broadcast by television when RCA chose a papier-mâché Felix doll for an experimental broadcast on W2XBS. The doll was chosen for its tonal contrast and its ability to withstand the intense lights needed in early television, and was placed on a rotating phonograph turntable and televised for about 2 hours each day. The doll remained on the turntable for nearly a decade as RCA fine-tuned the picture's definition and converted to electronic television. The station left the air sometime in 1933 as RCA turned its attention to all-electronic cathode ray tube television research at its Camden, New Jersey facility, under the leadership of Dr. Vladimir K. Zwierigin. In 1935, the all-electronic court system was authorized as a field test project, and NBC converted a radio studio in the RCA building in New York City's Rockefeller Center for television use. In mid-1936, small-scale, irregularly scheduled programming began to air to an audience of some 75 receivers in the homes of high-level RCA staff. star, and a dozen of cassettes in a closed-circuit viewing room in 52nd floor offices of the RCA building. The viewing room often hosted visiting organizations or corporate guests, who saw a live program produced in the studios many floors below. Viewership of early NBC broadcasts was tightly restricted to those authorized by the company, whose installed set base eventually reached about 200. Technical standards for television broadcasting were in flux as well. Between the time experimental transmissions began in 1935 and the beginning of commercial television service in 1941, picture definition increased from 343 to 441 lines, and finally to the 525-line standard used for analog television from the start of full commercial service until the end of analog broadcasts in mid-2009. The sound signal also was changed from AM to FM, and the spacing of sound and vision carriers was also changed several times. Shortly after NBC began a semi-regular television transmission schedule in 1938, Dumont Laboratories announced TV sets for sale to the public, a move that RCA was saving for the opening of the World's Fair on April 30, 1939, the day that regularly scheduled television programming was to begin in New York on NBC with much fanfare. In response, NBC ceased all TV broadcasting for several weeks until RCA sets went on sale and regular NBC telecasts commenced the day the fair opened. Firsts for W2XBS. As W2XBS broadcasting on Channel 1, the station scored numerous firsts, including the first televised Broadway drama, live news event covered by mobile unit, live telecast of a presidential speech, the first live telecasts of college and Major League Baseball, the first telecast of a National Football League game, the first telecast of a National Hockey League game, and the first network telecast of a political convention, and the broadcast of the feature film The Crooked Circle on June 18, 1940. But in August 1940, W2XBS transmissions were temporarily put on hold, as Channel 1 was reassigned by the FCC to 50 to 56 MHz and technical adjustments needed to be made for the conversion. The station returned to the air in October, just in time to broadcast Franklin D. Roosevelt's second and final appearance on live television, when his speech at Madison Square Garden on October 28, 1940 was telecast over W2XBS, first commercial television station. On June 24, 1941, W2XBS received a commercial license under the calls Wnbc, thus becoming one of the first two fully licensed commercial television stations in the United States, along with CBS W2XAB on Channel 2, which became WCBW. The NBC and CBS stations were licensed and instructed to sign on simultaneously on July 1 so that neither of the major broadcast companies could claim exclusively to be first. However, WCBW did not manage to sign on the air until 2:30 p.m., one full hour after WNBT. As a result, WNBC inadvertently holds the distinction as the oldest continuously operating commercial television station in the United States, and also the only one ready to accept sponsors from its beginning. The first program broadcast at 1300 EST by the sign-on opening ceremony with the national anthem of the United States of America, the Star-Spangled Banner, followed by an announcement of that day's programs and the commencement of NBC television programming. WNBT originally broadcast on Channel 1. On its first day on the air, WNBT broadcast the world's first official television advertisement before a baseball game between the Brooklyn Dodgers and Philadelphia Phillies. The announcement for Bulova watches, for which the company paid anywhere from $4 to $9, displayed a WNBT test pattern modified to look like a clock with the hands showing the time. The Bulova logo with the phrase Bulova Watch Time was shown in the lower right-hand quadrant of the test pattern, while the second hand swept around the dial for 1 minute. Although full commercial telecasting began on July 1, 1941, with the first paid advertisements on WNBT, there had been experimental, non-paid advertising on television as far back as 1930. NBC's earliest non-paid television commercials may have been those seen during the first Major League Baseball game ever telecast, a game between the Dodgers and the Cincinnati Reds, on August 26, 1939 over W2XBS. In order to secure the rights to show the game on television, NBC allowed each of the Dodgers' regular radio sponsors at the time to have one commercial during the telecast, and these were done by Dodger announcer Red Barber. For Ivory Soap, he held up a bar of the product. For Mobile Gas, he put on a filling station attendant's cap while giving his spiel. And for Wheaties, he poured a bowl of the product, added milk and bananas, and took a big spoonful. The pioneering special interest documentary show The Voice of Firestone Televiews, a television offshoot of The Voice of Firestone, a mainstay on NBC radio since 1928, became the first regularly scheduled TV program not featuring news of sports, when it began on WNBT on November 29, 1943. During World War II, RCA diverted key technical TV staff to the U.S. Navy, who were interested in developing a television-guided bomb. WNBT's studio and program staff were placed at the disposal of the New York City Police Department and used for civil defense training telecasts, with only a limited number of weekly programs for general audiences airing during much of the war. Programming began to grow on a small scale during 1944. On April 10, 1944, WNBT began feeding The Voice of Firestone Televiews each week to a small network of stations including General Electric's Schenectady station and Philco-owned WPTZ in Philadelphia, both of which are now affiliated with CBS. This series is considered to be the NBC television network's first regularly scheduled program. On May 8, 1945, WNBT broadcast hours of news coverage on the end of World War II in Europe, and remotes from around New York City. This event was pre-promoted by NBC with a direct mail card sent to television set owners in the New York City area. At one point, a WNBT camera placed atop the marquee of the Astor Hotel in New York City panned the crowd below celebrating the end of the war in Europe. The vivid coverage was a prelude to television's rapid growth after the war ended. In the spring of 1946, the station changed its frequency from VHF Channel 1 to Channel 4 after Channel 1 was removed from use for television broadcasting. From 1946 to 2009, it occupied the 66 to 72 MHz band of frequencies which had been designated as Channel 3 in the pre-1946 FCC allocation table but was renumbered Channel 4 in the post-war system. In October 1948, WNBT's operations were integrated with those of sister station WNBC Radio. The station changed its call letters on October 18, 1954, to WRCA-TV, and on May 22, 1960, Channel 4 became WNBC-TV. NBC had previously used the call sign on its television station in New Britain, Connecticut, from 1957 until it was sold earlier in 1960. WNBC-TV also earned a place in broadcasting history as the birthplace of The Tonight Show. It began on the station in 1953 as a local late-night program. The Steve Allen Show, and NBC executive Sylvester "Pat" Weaver brought it to the network in 1954. Studio 6B, the show's home under Jack Paar, Johnny Carson and today Jimmy Fallon, was the news studio for WNBC while Tonight was produced in Los Angeles. On June 1, 1992, Channel 4 dropped the TV suffix from its call letters and became simply WNBC, with the new branding slogan, "For New York." The accompanying station image campaign was titled "We're for New York" and featured a musical theme composed by Ed Calhoun. WNBC was rebranded again as NBC4 on September 5, 1995, with its newscasts being renamed News Channel 4. In March 2008, the "For New York" branding was revived. During the September 11, 2001 attacks, the transmitter facilities of WNBC, as well as 8 other New York City area television stations and several radio stations, were destroyed when 2 hijacked airplanes crashed into and destroyed the World Trade Center. WNBC broadcast engineer Bill Steckman died in the tragedy, along with 6 other engineers from other television stations. In the immediate aftermath, the station temporarily fed its signal to 3 UHF stations that were still broadcasting. After resuming over-the-air transmissions, the station broadcast from the former transmitter site of Channel 68 in West Orange, New Jersey. Since 2005, WNBC has broadcast its signal from the Empire State Building in Midtown Manhattan, returning to the original transmitter site used from the 1930s to the 1970s. In 2004, WNBC served as the model station for NBC Weather Plus, a 24-hour digital weather channel that aired on its second digital subchannel and on several local cable systems. Other NBC-owned stations launched their own Weather Plus channels in 2005, although Weather Plus was phased out at the end of 2008. In February 2015, WNBC and the other NBC-owned stations offered live, web-based streaming of programming to subscribers of participating cable and satellite television providers, as provided through the TV Everywhere mobile apps. Digital television, digital channels. On December 20, 2012, WNBC and other NBC-owned stations began carrying Cozy TV. It replaced NBC Nonstop, which had been carried on digital subchannel 4.2 since 2009. WNBC also has a mobile DTV feed of subchannel 4.2, labeled WNBC Mobile, broadcasting at 1.83 Mbit per second. Analog to digital conversion. WNBC discontinued regular programming on its analog signal over VHF Channel 4 at 12:30 p.m. on June 12, 2009, as part of the federally mandated transition from analog to digital television. The station's digital signal remained on its pre-transition UHF Channel 28, using PSIP to display WNBC's virtual channel as 4 on digital television receivers. Since the station qualified for the Nightlight clause in the DTV Delay Act, it was required to keep its analog signal on for 2 weeks to inform viewers of the digital television transition. From June 12 to June 26, 2009, the analog signal consisted of a loop of digital transition public service announcements while the digital channel was used for normal programming. WNBC's analog feed signed off at 11:00 a.m. on June 26 with a montage of historic test patterns and NBC logos, set to the NBC nightly news theme from the early 1980s, culminating with the word "goodbye." Quote, "Then, the screen cut to static programming." WNBC has long presented events such as the annual St. Patrick's Day Parade, the National Puerto Rican Day Parade, the Columbus Day Parade, and the Rockefeller Center tree lighting. They have sponsored an annual 2-day health and fitness expo fair at MetLife Stadium every summer, between 1995 and 2011. They were the exclusive local English-language carrier of the annual New York City Marathon until 2013, when WABC-TV took over. From 2010 to 2014, the station was an official local broadcast partner of Discovery Times Square. From 2012 to 2014, the station, along with the New York Daily News, has had partnerships with Mount Sinai Health System and Popular Community Bank. During the holiday season, the station has an annual holiday sing-along. The station also produces Visions, a weekly segment about Hispanic culture that also airs in Spanish on sister Telemundo station WNJU, and Positively Black, a weekly segment about Black American culture. WNBC serves as the flagship station for The Ellen DeGeneres Show. Some other syndicated programming includes Steve Harvey, Extra, and Access Hollywood, among others. Because of its ownership by the network, WNBC generally carries the entire NBC network schedule. Although the station does not clear the entirety of NBC's weekday overnight lineup, it does not clear the rebroadcast of the fourth hour of Today, and the network's broadcast of CNBC's Mad Money, opting to air syndicated programming instead. And Weekend Today is broadcast an hour later on Sunday than most NBC stations in the eastern United States, due to an hour-long Sunday morning newscast. Occasionally on Christmas Day each year until 2013, the station airs music and the spoken word, which is also aired on other NBC-owned stations. As of June 2016, WNBC is one of 5 NBC-owned stations that distributes programming either nationally and/or regionally. WNBC currently serves as the official flagship carrier of New York Giants football games, with rival WWOR-TV, served as the alternate carrier during the Summer Olympic Games, and formerly served as the official flagship carrier of New York Jets football games until rights to Jets games moved to WCBS-TV.